Hello there, traders. Hope everybody is good. Hope everyone is well. Going to be taking a look at a few markets today. Going to kick it off here with dollar CAD in a moment. Currently in a short position here, so just going to talk about that. Might be adding into it if we get a confirmation, which seems to be like we have had the confirmation on the 15-minute time frame. So just looking maybe for a little bit of a pullback here. So I'll go over that in a moment. Good afternoon, CG. Hope you're doing well. Fapello, welcome. Go over Aussie US dollar. Yeah, I'll jump over on Aussie US dollar in a moment. I did quite like the idea of Aussie, actually. I was looking at it today. And there's just some interesting levels to look out for, isn't there, on Aussie at the moment? Now, I was watching the 4-hour time frame. So if I just put up the daily time frame over here on the top left, and I can see that obviously price is pushed higher. You know, we've come up into this key area of support and resistance. Let me just see if I can full screen this so it looks a little bit better. You know, the daily has run up into a level of resistance now, right? It's these previous highs that formed back on the 9th of April. There's also these highs here that formed back on the 8th of March. And we had the RBA interest rate decision. So they held rates at 4.35% as expected. There wasn't anything really kind of shocking about that. And so, yeah, you know, you can see that we've come up into resistance. So what I like to do when price comes into resistance, I like to look at sort of changes on the lower time frame. Now, ideally, what we could wait for is a daily close here, as in if we got a daily bearish close, then we could be looking then for ideas to sell after price has hit this resistance level. And if I look at the 4-hour time frame here on the right hand side, I can see that yes, we kind of double topped here. Price came up, hit this previous high. We've sold off from that. If I look at the 15-minute time frame down here in the bottom left, we can see that we had that break of trend. Okay, and now the market's coming to retest this sort of area where we had that sort of selling pressure initially. What I like to look for though on a 4-hour time frame is a significant close below. So if I'm looking at this in terms of sort of my highs and lows and whatnot, really speaking, we haven't really created a new low yet. Technically, the only low I can argue about is that low where that 15-minute has kind of broken down, because it was a period of consolidation. You know, I like to see periods of consolidation between these kind of 2 points here. I like the idea that when price consolidates, it creates volume, and the market's coming back and it's retesting that volume. You know, if I was to put that to theory, I would grab a fixed volume profile tool. I'll just go over this area here on the fixed volume profile. See if that'll expand out. May need to adjust the settings here a little bit. No, there you go. So you can see large sort of volume being built in the consolidation area. Price broke to the downside of that consolidation and is now coming back to sort of test within the zone, test that maybe that point of control, which is 66.26. So I like the idea of shorts. However, you know, we do have some contradicting indications that price may not want to go short just yet. And that, for one, for me, is that there's a lack of a new low being formed here right now. So, you know, in theory, what I like to look for is for the price to make a sort of pattern like this. So move down, back in, move down. And then what I'm trying to look for essentially is after we get that sort of second pullback or third pullback, I want to see the transition then within this area for a move down. And looking at the 4-hour time frame here right now, although I like to short from sort of 4-hour highs and long from 4-hour lows, we don't have the condition here yet. We have the market kind of making a lower high But to confirm that lower low, I like to see a close below, at least 2 closes below that level. So I may be wrong, but I'm willing to kind of leave this one alone until that is potentially achieved, and that will be achieved if price was to sort of, make a new low here for me. But I like the idea of being short. Obviously, the daily time frame in the top left-hand corner here, you can see we're in kind of a consolidation, aren't we? Market is in that kind of tight trading range between 0.64, 0.6650. Usually in May as well, the Australian dollar is one of the worst performing currencies along with the New Zealand dollar. So seasonal, you would be looking potentially for that. I always say you've got to take seasonals as a little confluence. They're not the best confluence in the world, in my opinion, because sometimes they're not quite as accurate. But it just gives you an average of what happens throughout a period of, it tends to be 20 years or so. So in the past 20 years, May has been an underperforming month for the Australian dollar. So will that be against the US dollar? Maybe. Will it be against other currencies? We'll have to wait and see. But essentially, I like the idea of being short because we're at resistance, daily chart resistance in here. Some contradicting indicators, though. If we go up to the weekly chart, I can see here weekly, especially on my stochastic. Stochastic's still very bullish here on my weekly. Now, stochastics aren't everything for me, but, it's a momentum indicator. And when I look at sort of when the market has kind of come back above the sort of 20 there on a weekly scale, so this close, for instance, here, the market has continued to push to the upside. Very similar to here. Look, we came below, we've come back above, and the market is continuing to push higher for now. So the momentum, I still feel for the time being, is slightly to the upside on Aussie US dollar right now. What would make me change my mind, like I said, is this 4-hour breakdown. If we get a 4-hour breakdown here, or if we get a very strong daily bearish close here, I'd be very interested. Right now we've got a bit of a sort of engulfing candle potentially forming. So if we were to see price come in and close below yesterday's low, then that should create potentially a change of trend here on the 4-hour chart. So I agree. I quite like shorts on Aussie US dollar, but maybe just not yet. Maybe we need to just wait a little bit longer. Now, obviously, one chart I did like is the dollar CAD, and like I said, I'm actually in a position short dollar CAD at the moment, so I'll take you through what I'm kind of looking for there. Fapello, is your stochastic settings on default or custom? Mine's on 1533. So if we go to the inputs, percentage K is 15, percentage K smoothing is 3, and percentage D is 3. Okay. Now, dollar CAD's a really interesting market to me. I actually felt that when we breached this trend line resistance, this is the daily chart in the top left. This is the 4-hour chart here. Let me just delete some of these off. And what I'll do is I'll sync up these drawings if it wants to select them. There we go. Yeah, so essentially here we had this breach of trend, and I was very sort of interested in the idea that once we kind of breached this trend line here, that we could see potential momentum to the upside. And we initially did. We had a very nice sort of impulsive move. And looking down here, we had the consolidation as well. So that is where obviously volume had been built. We were building volume, and then the price kind of traded through that. And I was expecting price to find some kind of support on the way down. I was either looking at this consolidation zone or, at least these kind of previous highs that had been broken. And I was really looking here to see if there was any kind of changes, especially on the lower time frame. But that wasn't to be the case. You know, if I look at the 15-minute time frame in the bottom left, let me just take a few of these lines off. You'll notice that the 15-minute here doesn't change trend. Okay, and this is what I typically look for. So the market makes a lower high, lower low, and then it kind of sticks within that, doesn't actually breach out to the upside where I would typically then be a buyer of the market. But the market just kept falling. We then obviously had NFP data, and we saw a little bit of boost back to the upside, but we just pretty much remained sideways then. And I was just kind of thinking that, does that mean that maybe $CAD is going to come back down and actually retest the 136 handle, which is something we've spoken about previously? So I was watching this 4-hour time frame, obviously daily, closed bearish yesterday. We've got a sort of momentum down here with the stochastic. Just to kind of contradict myself there, just to go to the, sorry, not to contradict myself, to kind of add confluence. If I look at the weekly, we've also got a sort of a bearish stochastic on the weekly as well. Obviously, that does not mean that price is going to move lower, but it's just giving us a little bit of a confluence potentially into what's happening with price. So then I was on this 4-hour time frame, identified that there was a high point here. Okay, so that's between that sort of 136.80 up to sort of 137 handle. And what I basically like the idea of was, if price was to sort of reject here, can it continue lower? First targets could be the support in lows just through there. Okay, second targets could be the previous swing lows down through here. So all I've done is I've took an early short position. So I'm going to show you up here. Took an early short position where that yellow arrow is. Okay, so I'm looking to see, can I take the play to the downside there? A little bit of an earlier move. So I've got in at 0.25% risk. So I'm just waiting to see if I get a confirmation. And what I'm basically looking for is what's happening here now. So you can see the market's making lower highs, and now it's made a new low. Okay, so if I get a second close below these swing lows here, I'm more happy with the idea of price moving lower. Okay, and that may be sort of, you know, it depends. You know, that may be a move down to sort of the previous swing low of the day. It may be looking for the 4-hour kind of swing lows down through here. But essentially, I want to see, is this going to be the move now that pushes price down towards this swing low, maybe even down towards that 136 handle again? Okay, so what I'm going to look for essentially, does this 15-minute downward trend continue, you know, with these kind of lower highs and lower lows? And can that give me a potential opportunity to the downside? So that's what I'm particularly looking for. But I need a second close. If we get a big bullish candlestick up here now, closing back above these lows here, not really interested in adding to a position at that point. What I will be looking for, like I said, give me 2 closes below. If we get a pullback, then I'll be looking for a condition where I get a nice sort of lower high, lower low on the candlestick, and I'll be looking to potentially sort of, you know, get involved again with that, add a little bit more risk onto the table, because we're now also breaking below that 50 MA on the 15-minute as well. Sorry guys if I'm a bit croaky, I'm a little bit ill, but very similar to over here, right? If we look at yesterday's price action, the market was above the area, came into swing highs, so we do nothing until price makes a new low, which is there. It comes back up. So here could be a good idea to start putting your first positions in. Again, go with a lower risk initially. When the market confirms with a second break, then you're looking for adding in for another position. And then the market obviously continued to push lower until it changed trend. But you can see once we kind of confirm below the 50 MA there, price really kind of stayed below it. That's what I'm really trying to do here. If price is kind of below the 50 MA, it just tells me that maybe the momentum is more with the sellers than it is with the buyers for the time being. So that's what I'm looking for here. We've got that sort of confirmed close now whilst we've been talking. So
can we get a continuation now? I'll be monitoring this. If we get a bit of a pullback here, that's what I really want to see. And can I get an opportunity to add into another position, basically, is what I'm looking for at the moment. Hopefully that makes sense. Tabo wants to take a look at gold and oil. Yeah, let's go take a look at gold. I've actually done pretty all right on gold today. Actually did a few scalps on gold this morning. Let's go take a look at gold. Interestingly about gold, I like the idea to actually be long now. Because if we take a little look at the volume profile of yesterday, we can see that price. Well, actually, let's take a look at the daily first. Daily chart. You can see that we are still technically bullish. The market tried to form a new low here. We had one close below, but then had a strong bullish close. Okay, and then the market broke lower, back above, and then we got a strong bullish close yesterday. So is that momentum going to feed into this trading session? Into the US trading session? I think potentially it could. Now, if you look at the sort of volume profile here for gold, you can see that a lot of the price action. So you can see I've drawn a yellow box out here, which was the value area high, value area low of yesterday. And the market has been within those conditions there, and what I looked at earlier was getting short, basically. I was short this morning down into this value area low area and basically waited to see what happened, because the value area low can be a point of where price either breaks through, continues to trade to the downside, or whether we stay within yesterday's value. And potentially now, by the looks of it, we could be heading back to the high, heading back to the value area high, which is currently around the $2,330 level. Okay, so maybe you can add it up to $2,331, which is pretty much yesterday's swing highs. Now, if we look at the 4-hour time frame here as well, I had a nice little pin candle, and now we're starting to see a little bit of a push up here. If we go to the hourly, you can see that it was this nice sort of hourly swing low as well, where the market has consolidated, broken out. So yeah, all we need to do now, really, if we're looking to be a sort of buyer of gold, right, what I'd look for, so this is the 15-minute, same as this one here, but just expanded out, is what have we got? Well, we've got a consolidation zone. Okay, price was in this consolidation, and now buyers have won. Okay, so what I'd be looking for now is a pullback. I'm looking for a pullback on the 15-minute. So let's say we had bearish candle, bearish candle, bearish candle into the zone, and then we get a higher high, higher low on the candlestick. Then we can go even lower. Maybe we want to go to a scalping time frame, sort of like the 5-minute, 3-minute, 1-minute sort of time frames, and essentially look for ideas to the upside. And what would that look like? That would basically look like, in terms of the 15-minute, where we have this impulse here and then bearish leg. So if I actually just change the color of these trend lines for now, just so you can actually see them a bit more clearly. Let's do this as, we'll put it as, leave it as yellow. Just make it a little bit thicker. I can't really see that actually, can we? White, red, let's put it as red. So essentially what I mean is, if I go down to a lower time frame now, let's say the 3-minute, or even lower, let's say the 2-minute time frame, if you were looking to scalp this, what do you notice about here at the moment? Well, what I notice is that the market starts to form an upward trend on the lower time frame. So we had market then starting to make higher highs and higher lows, right? So if the market is to come back, or as in form a sort of pullback here on the 15-minute time frame, to me, what should happen is the market to make lower highs and lower lows back to that point, right? Which gives us an opportunity. It gives us a real kind of insight into what's going to happen in the market, because the way I would look at that is I'd see that as my pre-signal. Okay, so if the market kind of comes back, does this, okay, comes into the zone, if those conditions change, so let's say the market rallies, comes back in, we form a head and shoulders pattern maybe, and price breaks it, that to me would be a really good idea to start being a short-term buyer. And I'll be looking to try and potentially trade it up to the value area high, which is up there at that $2,331 area. So that's if you're going to scalp gold. If you want to look at it from a higher time frame point of view, you know, it's a little bit choppy right now in terms of like any kind of concrete sort of ideas. You know, at the end of the day, price came up into this resistance level, started to pull back a little bit. So, you know, I would like to be long into that level, which is around that 23.31 handle. But do I want to be a buyer beyond that right now? Probably not. You know, that's a good area to take some profits. If we breach, then we've got sort of these highs to worry about in here, or potentially back up towards this period of consolidation, which was towards that sort of 23.80 handle on gold. So yeah, I like those. I like those potential ideas there. So yeah, for me, there's a potential for a little bit of gold upside, mainly based off this daily chart. You know, you can see nice, strong, bullish daily candlestick. If we look at the stochastic on the daily as well, you can see that we've got that sort of crossover of the K and D line. We're coming back above 20. Does that mean that price is going to move higher? No, but it can add a nice confluence. The last time it did that was back here on February 16th, Friday, February 16th. And price went on to do a sort of big move to the upside. So is that the precursor of a move? Who knows? But it can just give you a little bit of confluence with what you're trying to achieve. But more importantly, the price action needs to be right. You know, we've had a consolidation here at the value area low. We've breached it. Can we hold above that level? You know, the clue is going to be in this 15-minute. You know, and if it pulls back, we can potentially have an opportunity. I'll keep an eye on that on another screen as well, while I keep an eye on dollar CAD too. But yeah, I like the idea of potential gold upside. Let's go have a little look at oil. Any questions as well, guys? Fire them in. You know, if there's any ideas that you want to take a look at, let me know in the comment section as well. I've got a video coming up in a bit as well, which is about a webinar I'm running on Thursday. So if you're interested in joining me for that webinar, then let me know, and I'll make sure to post that link in the description on the YouTube video coming up. But yeah, let's take a look at oil. So obviously there's been lots of talk of ceasefire and whatnot. There is also talk about that's just being used as almost like political sort of warfare now between Israel and Hamas. And obviously we've seen a decline. We've seen a decline here. Now it's quite interesting considering the fact as well that we've got a, you know, we've got OPEC cutting production as well, which is quite interesting. So I see the oil price coming lower. Very interesting right now. And, you know, I liked the idea of being a buyer of oil as long as we remained above $80. And we're below that now. We're below $80. If I look at it from a weekly perspective, you know, it's not looking too good. We've had a very strong bearish close last week. So does this really make me want to be a buyer of oil right now? Absolutely not. I need to wait for further conditions. And if you look at the 4-hour time frame here, you know, the selling pressure is kind of fading a little bit. You know, we are in this kind of channel here. You know, if this was to kind of break out, maybe break back above 80, then maybe I'd feel a little bit better about being a buyer of oil again. But I don't really see that right now. although price is, you know, coming back into this low here, looks like it's failing a little bit. I just don't see the attraction of buying this right now. I'd rather see a bullish close here on the weekly or something. But the last time, so we've got a similar situation here on the stochastic. You know, the week prior was saying that we should be short. Very similar to actually the look of $CAD, if you think about it, where we've got this kind of pin candle, but the stochastics pointing to the downside. And then obviously last week we followed through with that momentum. The last time that kind of occurred on the weekly chart was back here on the 2nd of October. We followed that with 2 weeks of bullishness before seeing quite an aggressive move lower. So I'll be keeping an eye on the sort of 4-hour time frames here. I think if the midterm sort of trend changes, then you've got something to potentially work with. But for now, I think this is pretty bearish. You know, I'll be looking at my 4-hour highs here and here, you know, and depending on how price reacts from these levels, we probably could see something like this happen instead, with a bit of downside. Joffrey, welcome. Hi, John. Thoughts on Kiwi Swiss? Yeah, let's have a little look at Kiwi Swiss. I am going to go over CAD Swiss as well. I've had a few comments asking to go over CAD Swiss lately, so I will jump over on CAD Swiss as well. Now, Swiss franc, strong currency at the moment. If I bring in the currency strength meter, let's have a little look at this. We have a little look at the currency strength meter here. Swiss franc, strong currency. You know, it's this purple line through here, or pink line, and is one of the stronger currencies at the moment. It's stronger than pretty much every other currency apart from what I have down as the Australian dollar right now. Dollar Swiss, nice little crossover there as well. So it does suggest that you want to be a buyer of the Swiss franc rather than a seller of the Swiss franc right now, which is interesting, isn't it? Considering the Swiss National Bank cut interest rates, I would have expected the market to have, you know, continued to sell off essentially. Now, if I go to the daily chart here on Kiwi Swiss, you know, Kiwi Swiss could be a good market to watch for in terms of strength and weakness because, like I said before, May is usually a pretty underperforming month for a New Zealand dollar. Swiss franc, obviously a strong currency currently. So I like the idea of being a potential seller of Kiwi Swiss. Now, do we have the conditions? Okay, so it's important to look at the conditions in the market. And at the moment, I don't think we do. You know, we've got this kind of more of an upward trend situation going on. Now, we are at resistance, which I like. You know, I like the idea of price coming into resistance and failing at that resistance. But we need a confirmation, don't we? And I think at the moment, that low there would be significant. So anything below 0.5430 right now, I would be then, okay, yeah, there's potential for this to move back to the downside. If we look at it from a daily point of view, you know, you could target these 0.54 lows, and then if it breaches that, you've got 0.5350, whereas this kind of level of support is held. Okay, so arguably you've got, you know, maybe a bit of a range going on here as well, and price is coming into the highs of that range. So there could be a good idea to be a seller at range highs. So, but yeah, I'd like to see that 4-hour change before getting too involved with that one. But like I said, the Swiss franc is a strong currency right now. I've been monitoring a potential dollar Swiss short. I just don't like the daily chart right now. Obviously, we came back into an area of support, and we've had a bit of a sort of pullback here right now. I liked the idea of potentially seeing price back to 9,100, just because that was kind of like those previous lows in here. So maybe if we could get a little bit more of a push up here, I'd be a bit happier to look for a short idea at that point. Looking at the 15-minute time frame, though, you can see we've made new lows here. We've come into the previous kind of swing lows as well, finding a little bit of support there, but back below that 50 MA again. Daily stochastic is pointing down. Let's have a look at the hourly. We've got a 4 hour that's looking a bit more bullish, but the 1 hour, more of the bearish side of things. So yeah, that dollar Swiss I do like to the downside. So maybe I'll look for a position on dollar Swiss as well, but maybe if we get a bit of a pull back into this kind of previous zone here where the market tried to be a buyers but failed. So let's just pop an alert there. See if price can come back up, because technically we could be getting 15-minute lower highs and lower lows at the moment. Maybe we could target back down towards the 0.9 handle, potentially. So yeah, I do like dollar Swiss to the downside. I'm going to quickly flip back over to gold, see if we've got that kind of breakout situation forming. So this is the pullback we're getting right now, which you can see over here as well on the hourly. Yeah, let's have a little look at CAD Swiss then. Yeah, I've had that requested a lot, so we'll take a look at CAD Swiss. Again, Swiss franc, strong currency, so not really looking for anything special here. Last week we had a nice bearish close, kind of completely engulfed, because it's an engulfing candle, so it completely engulfed last week's price action. Again, we've kind of got the stochastic kind of pushing a little bit lower here. If we go down to a daily chart, a little bit more choppy. I don't really trade the cross pairs too often. If I do, I have to see good reason to do so. This candlestick here is a bit of an outlier, isn't it? The candlestick that formed on the 19th of April. Bit of an outlier there, considering you got this kind of pullback up. So maybe that's the target, maybe because we had such an aggressive buying in here, sellers going to look to target that sort of wick low on the daily. So again, as long as the 4 hour time frame for me stays within trend, look at the 50 MA here on the hourly right now, and you've got that kind of secondary phase, haven't you? So let me go back to a 4 hour and I'll show you what I mean. So here we have impulse phase or primary phase, secondary phase, impulse phase, secondary phase. Okay. If I go to the hourly, you'll see, probably a bit clearer on a 15-minute, but you'll see within the sort of phases on a higher time frame, you get trends. So the hourly here, you can see, starts to make lower highs and lower lows. It then starts to make higher high, higher low, consolidates, breaks out, okay, which gives you the impulse leg. We then start to get higher highs, higher lows again, okay? So really speaking, you want to wait for that to change, wait for that condition to change, and then it gives you the opportunity to continue to look for your sell ideas, right? So for me right now, if I want to be a short CAD Swiss, I want to be looking at this hourly. I want to make sure that goes back within trend first. So essentially, do I get the impulse leg that drives past that low? And then do I get a pullback? Then I can look at my 15-minute and look for the exact same conditions, because then you've got evidence here showing you that when it goes within trend, you can start getting involved again. So if I look at the 15-minute leg here, for instance, or the hourly impulsive phase there, I'll sync that within the layout and come here on the 15-minute, the bottom left-hand corner of this screen. Look what you see there, so it's evidence that this works like that. You've got consolidation, price breaks it, and what do you get? You get lower highs and lower lows, okay? So our job, if you want to trade this, your job is to look for the peaks and look for when those peaks turn into opportunities, okay, as a trader, right? Would I necessarily trade CAD Swiss on a lower time frame? You know, depends on what your spreads are like. So just be careful. Just be careful with that. I think your cross pairs, you're more likely to look for higher time frame opportunities. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Tabo wants to take a look at Bitcoin. Let's have a look then. So yeah, nothing's really changed here too much, has it? I like the idea of price coming down to the 52k level, but it doesn't look like we're going to get that right now. If anything, we might actually get a bit of a head and shoulders pattern. So looking at last week, you know, we can see that we had a strong bullish close above previous lows. Well, not a bullish close, but we had a wick closing back within those lows, essentially, which could be a bullish sign. Could be a bullish sign that we're going to see a move up. You know, we had the halving as well recently, and price hasn't really done much, which is typical. The last time we had the halving as well, price moved sideways for a good while before seeing an increase in price. But again, you know, the market's driven by supply and demand. So you want to be looking at those areas of key support and resistance, essentially. If we look at the 4-hour time frame here, you know, you can see we had a nice spike up here. We breached that. The market's rallied. So I'm not against the 60k level. You know, if price comes back down towards 60k, forms a rejection, could be a good place to be a buyer of Bitcoin again. If you look at it from the daily chart, it's a little bit cleaner here. You can see the market making a low, lower high, lower low. We've pulled back in. Is that going to be the sticking point for further opportunities higher? Going to keep an eye on gold a little bit there. Any other questions, guys? Got a lot of coming up this week. Like I said, we've got the Bank of England coming up. There's not a lot in the way of a lot of US dollar data lately, and the dollar's underperformed, hasn't it? You know, it's kind of gone. It broke kind of back to the downside here. I really like the idea of price reaching 107 before seeing that downside movement, but that wasn't to be the case. We kind of came back up into the 106.50s, which were the swing highs before seeing that kind of move lower. But for me now, dollar is in a precarious position. Yeah, I think it's on an edge where it could start to really push back to the downside, especially if the market believes that the data is now kind of matching up to what the Fed have been discussing, because arguably previously it wasn't. You know, they were talking about, you know, that we are going to see lower labor figures, we are going to see lower inflation rates, and the market or the data that was dropping has kind of got against it until last week. You know, last week was when we really started to see the data align, and that could be a thing that sees the market kind of switch rhetoric on the US dollar and see a little bit of downside. I imagine the stock markets would be very good at the minute, or at least enjoying it at the moment. So, you know, you can see here on the Dow here, we've now made a new high on the 4-hour time frame. So, you know, is this an idea of, you know, price starting to move back to the upside here? So maybe we can start being a buyer of the Dow again. You know, we're quite clearly above the 50 MA now, which is good, especially if you want to be a buyer. So maybe if we get the sort of move like this back down into the swing highs there, we can look to be a buyer of the stock market again, with the idea of targeting back towards that all-time high level. You know, it's very similar to the NASDAQ as well. Breach here on the daily, pushing to the upside. Just want to see a bit of a pullback in the market before looking for the long idea. Same with the S&P 500 as well. FTSE is doing pretty all right as well. Markets continue to push higher there. I didn't really monitor this. I was looking for the long ideas, but haven't really been monitoring it. But you can see here, again, price well above the 50 MA, moving back to the upside there. But yeah. Right then, guys, I think I'm going to leave it there. Obviously, just to kind of recap, like the idea of being Aussie US dollar short, but I need to see more evidence right now. It's not there. If anything, it looks more likely to push a little bit higher. Dollar CAD, I like dollar CAD downside in the short term. Looking at how the 15-minute is shaping up, seeing if we can get a hold below the 50 MA there. And I like gold upside. I like gold upside as well. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, guys. I'll be putting a video out shortly where you can sign up and come and watch the Bank of England webinar, and we can take a look at cable and how that performs as well. So I'm going to leave it there. So thank you for everybody that joined me today. Really appreciate you coming to watch, and I will catch you all on Thursday. Cheers, guys.